It is an honor and privilege to be here at this beautiful college and campus on the first day of spring. Everything is beautiful.
6:38 this morning. We were driving along and we said, "Wonder when spring is going to. Let's check the phones," and it was spring already.
The tune that we're getting ready to do is a tune called Martha Campbell. Now, there's people in eastern Kentucky in the fiddle tradition that thinks this particular tune should be the state song of Kentucky because it's such a favorite tune. And it pulls from a tradition that goes way back. Buddy Thomas, who was a great Kentucky fiddler in eastern Kentucky, played it. J.P. Fraley. The great Ed Haley, who was born in West Virginia, made his home in Ashland, Kentucky. So both Kentucky and West Virginia like to claim Ed Haley. Well, somebody in Kentucky called me about Delbert Hughes, another great fiddler, and they said, "Do you know where he was born?" Because it's like they wanted to try to claim Delbert Hughes, being born here, and because he lived here for a while. Then he lived in West Virginia. And a little thing I told them, I said, well, you can't have Delbert Hughes because he was born in Tennessee. And you got to give us back Ed Haley. So, okay. that little tune there is very friendly to kind of get in your head and learn. The bowing on it is not that friendly. So that is borrowing a little bit from the Clark Kessinger tradition because he was just a master with the bow, 3 times world champion. I learned a great deal from him. I still hold myself to his standards, but then I realized that his recordings he was about 30-some years old. I'm now in my mid-60s, so I'm thinking, beam me up, Scotty, when I can do some of the stuff that I used to do. So you never know. But here is a very great tune. It's a very good chance that Ed Haley could have written this. I don't have any factual information that he did, but I can't see that anybody predated him on it. It's Indian.
It was at least his version.
It was
because there are other versions floating around.
There's other versions, and I don't know which one is older. But Ed Haley, like I said, lived in Ashland, Kentucky, born in West Virginia. He was a blind fiddler, and he raised, I think it was 5 children. He and his wife both were blind, so he was a professional fiddle player. And I remember back in West Virginia, Wilson Douglas and some of the really old mountain fiddlers, if Ed Haley was coming to town, whatever work they had on the farm all come to a dead stop. If Ed Haley was in town, man, that was the celebration. So here's a tune here that I patterned a little bit off of Ed Haley, but I'm a little bit improvisational, so I make everything mine, just like he did. Thank you very much. I would like to point out that at this point, Harold Hazlett, who made my violin, always said the most beautiful violin maybe ever. Just an unbelievable gold medal out of 17 countries for tone. He's 99. I go see him. He doesn't make any more, but it's wonderful to go visit him. He looks about 75 years old. He hasn't aged since I was very young. I don't know how that happens, but on his 100th birthday, I think we'll have a party and have everybody that owns their Hazletts to come and get their picture taken with him. He's the grand old man of the fiddle and has influenced a bunch of modern makers that he could make such a beautiful tone that sounded old and mellow. And this is the famous number 19, but everybody that owns one thinks they probably have the best one. Trademark of a great maker. This is a tune here called Billy in the Low Ground, and it's a neat tune. And what I really like about this particular tune is when Ken and I was playing it, there's a recording of, I think, Kentucky recording of Burnett and Rutherford, and they played a version with fiddle and banjo that gave it almost a riverboat type sound. There was a chord, the way they did it, it just sounded so ancient and old. And when Ken and I played it together, I don't know what he did on it, and I don't even know if you'd even familiar with the recording.
I'm not.
But I was kind of, oh my goodness, that's like Burnett and Rutherford. So, Billy in the Low Ground. I'm known for my false starts. So, somebody said, is he ready yet? No.
Walk Along John.
Okay. This is the next tune we're getting ready to do. I always told my friend Charlie, who plays the guitar, that this was dedicated to his dog. His dog's name was John. This tune is called Walk Along John. I've got a good friend that he lives now in the Chicago area by the name of Charlie Walden. He was a great folklorist who studied traditions in Missouri, whatever you want to go there. But he was nominated for a Grammy for his work in trying to preserve some really neat old fiddle tunes, and this is one of them, and it's called Walk Along John.
Westphalia Waltz.
Okay.
So we're going to have a little change of pace here. We're going to do a waltz, a three-quarter time tune. And this is Westphalia Waltz. And I read an account that may well have come from Central Europe and been brought over by a soldier during the Second World War. But now there is a Westphalia in Germany, but there's also a Westphalia, Texas, so I'm not sure where this particular title comes from. I saw one fiddler write this down in a set list, the Westphalia Waltz.
Westphalia. Yeah. That's pretty cool. In the old-time tradition, it's important to note that a lot of the old-time fiddlers could barely play a waltz. It just wasn't, they liked the faster tunes in my area and in eastern Kentucky, except for J.P. Fraley, who was the waltz king. But the touch on a waltz is a little different, and the fiddlers would normally play a lot of stuff. That type of bowing. So for them to play a waltz, it was hard to get subtle enough to do that. So here you go, the Westphalia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, our next tune is Fischer's Hornpipe, and this is a tune played by fiddlers all across the Western world, and it first shows up in the 1780s or so in Scotland. Shows up in London as well at publishers, and by the 1790s it was showing up in American tune books. And the original version was in the key of F, and a lot of Scottish fiddlers and Canadian fiddlers still played in that key, and the Irish and most North Americans play it in D.
Yeah, it's one of the ones in the remote areas like West Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, and in many other states. There was 3 hornpipes that was the favorites. Fischer's was one of them. So a lot of times in the oral tradition, they just couldn't remember, too much more than that. They brought it from what settled West Virginia was like the Scotch, Irish, and they brought it from their homelands, and all they could do was what they could remember. So Fischer's Hornpipe was one of the favorites. It's definitely not the only hornpipe. There's unbelievable amounts of them. On this next tune, I want Ken to take the lead pretty much all the way through it. I'm going to play it. This is a very special tune, and I want Ken to tell you something about it once he gets in tune there. There's a lot of traditional fiddlers that really made a mark as far as preserving the old legacies. The fiddler who played this tune was one of them, and I'll let Ken tell you about the tune.
Well, for about 15 years, I toured with a gentleman who was not only a great fiddler, but one of the most renowned folklorists in North America. And his name was Alan Jabbour, and he just passed away in January. And so I toured with Alan for 15 years, and the tune that he played that I thought most represented his style, and we always started our concerts with this tune. It's called Billy in the Low Land. We just played you Billy in the Low Ground. This is a different Billy in a different low place. And so we'd like to dedicate this tune to him. And Alan collected it from a fiddler in West Virginia, or he grew up in West Virginia. I guess he lived right over the border when Alan met him.
Both states probably claim him too.
And his name was Henry Reed. And Henry Reed was born in around 1880 and died in the 60s. And Alan did a lot of extensive recording of him. And you can hear a lot of his field recordings on a website called Fiddle Tunes of the Old Frontier, sponsored by the Library of Congress. So we'd like to dedicate this tune, Billy in the Lowland, to Alan's memory.
This tune here is a little bit out of my league because I have a tendency to try to improvise and do things, and this one here I don't want to do that. So that's why I want, once I kick it off, I want Ken to keep me in line here on that. That tune there is a test. Every musician should have complaints about their infirmities. I'm lucky to be playing tonight because I had a cortisone shot in the ring finger, which has trigger finger. Those of you who've heard of that, it clicks open and out. So certain things is difficult to do. And I said, well, I'll be okay tonight if the finger don't just lock on the fingerboard and I have to pry it back open. So I feel fortunate, though, to be able to play at all after going to the doctor this past week and getting that shot. The finger was numb for a couple days, so I don't know. Now we're going to do Miller's Reel. Miller's Reel is one of the really nice tunes that's in the reel section. The reel section, as opposed to the hornpipe section and the breakdowns and all those other wonderful styles. Well, let's see if I can keep this on track here.
We could mention it's related to an Irish tune called The Dawn.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's good. Ken has a vast amount of knowledge. He's spent his whole life, basically, not his whole life, it's not over yet, he reminded me.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet, so. But he has quite a few recordings over there that he's done down through the years, and some books, and a brand new book that is very special. A lot of love, dedication, and research went into it. And I have one CD that I managed to get. It's over there, and it basically is a style that I don't normally play because it's got a three-finger style banjo with it, but he's playing the old-time fiddle tunes. He happened just to record it and press it, so there's that. So, okay, Miller's Reel, A. you.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to beam me up, Scotty. Notes different tuning, and a very, very, very most historic fiddle. You've heard me talk earlier in the concert of Blind Ed Haley. Was not known to ever record. Little did people know that his son, Lawrence Haley, had some home-pressed disc of Ed Haley's fiddling. Somebody from the Library of Congress come to visit him and would interview him. And then all of a sudden, Lawrence said, "Would you like to hear him?" The guy almost passed out. A lot of people has just an unbelievable sense of reverence when the Ed Haley fiddle comes out. The fiddle with the little red ribbon on it. John Hartford was the custodian of this fiddle. Lawrence Haley gave it to him to showcase. The little red ribbon says Ed Haley on it, calligraphed by John Hartford. So this fiddle has a creepy, eerie, almost ghost tones, like Ed Haley's ghost is still in the fiddle playing with you. A tone that is all of its own, just won't sound like the one you just heard at all. Equally great and just very awesome. As a matter of fact, Harold Hazlitt said, he come to hear it, the gold medal winner, he said, "I wonder how on earth I could ever make that. I'd never heard anything like it." So, Ed Haley's fiddle.
Tell them what you're going to play, too.
Oh, okay. I'm going to play a tune that was Ed and Hammond's tune, known for, but Webster Springs, is Ed Haley traveled there. So their paths crossed, and in one of the Haley recordings, he's playing a little bit of this. So,
And it's called Washington's March.
Washington's March. Did I not get around to the name, Ken?
And it was puzzling to some people because it doesn't sound like a marching tune. And
No.
Is it, what's the name of Van Gundy's? What's his first name? The
Doug
fiddler?
Van
Doug
Gundy.
Van Gundy. He theorizes that it's about a march and not a march.
Probably.
Yeah.
Now, another little thing that comes to mind that may be of interest to you, Woody Simmons was a great West Virginia fiddler, and back then contest was dog eat dog, man. And Ed and Hammond's won almost every contest with Washington's March. So Woody Simmons says, "I'm going to go visit him and learn his tune." Well, he went to visit Ed, all right, and he learned a tune that he thought was Washington's March. 50 years after his death, he played it at the Folk Festival at Glenville, saying, "This is George Washington's March." Well, then the Ed and Hammond's collection came out. Woody went to his grave and never learned Washington March. Ed had taught him, "Molly, put the kettle on." And he said, "Oh, Eden Hammond tricked me. He didn't even show me Washington's March." So you can see how the tradition.
But this is, we guarantee this is actually Washington. Believe us. This is what,
This we think it is. So. Well, wait a second here. Tuning here.
oh.
I wondered what was wrong. I knew something was wrong. There's all these different tunings for fiddles. Pardon me. So.
Are you starting with four potato? Are you starting with four potato?
No, I just
You just
like
go ahead.
Eden did. I'll just kind of,
Okay.
sorry about the. Okay, here we go. Could y'all hear the ghost tones in that? Kind of drones along with the tone. It's a spooky little fiddle. Okay, it is time for Ken to showcase some of the music that he learned in Prince Edward Island, which his book is about, I might add, and I'll let him tell you what he's going to do.
Thank you, Bobby. I had the wonderful experience of spending many years collecting tunes and oral histories from fiddlers on Prince Edward Island. And in a lot of ways, it's very much like Appalachian North. The population, the makeup of the population is similar, and the fiddling came over about the same time and has evolved in its own ways and was intensely involved in local community life. And fiddlers there had very colorful styles and very colorful stories. And in the eastern part of the island, the styles are more closely aligned with Scottish and Cape Breton fiddling, and in the western part, it's more French influence, but it's still a very similar repertoire. And I really fell in love with with a way they have of organizing music sometimes into what are called Scottish sets, which are different kinds of tunes and different tempos, all wedded together in a musical tapestry. And I'll play you one of these, and it's a March Strathspeyan Reel, and the tunes are Miss Maxwell, Miss Gordon, and Robert Stubbert, the last one being by Jerry Holland, who is a great Cape Breton fiddler who died all too young, about 10 years ago. very much.
That was beautiful. Okay.
Happy Jack.
Happy Jack is a tune that is a lot like a lot of the Appalachian tunes. It's a C tune, and it's called Happy Jack, and it's out of what I would consider the Missouri tradition. That's what fiddlers do when they meet up. I met this fiddler that had a bowing style similar to mine, so it was kind of user-friendly to learn a few of his tunes. So. Thank you. Okay,
So we have one more.
we've got one more tune on our little list here, and I need to tell you a little bit about it. Oh, my gosh.
But before we
Okay.
introduce the tune, we want to thank Hugo Freund and
yeah.
Union College for bringing us here. And we really enjoy being here. It's great playing for you folks. And we'll be around tomorrow working at giving a couple of class presentations. So maybe we'll see you folks there and around campus. And again, we'd like to mention we have some books and recordings here, and I'd like to particularly mention my new book called Couldn't Have a Wedding Without the Fiddler, and it's based on oral histories collected from Prince Edward Island fiddlers. So our very last tune is Hell Among the Yearlings, and maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about that.
Hell Among the Yearlings, I used to not say that on stage. Mike Humphreys, another fiddler that I learned some of it from, called it Devil Among the Dumb Brutes. So I kind of like that name too. So anyway, though, Clark Kessinger, if I can pull some of his technique off, he owned the stage when he was on it. He was an electrifying performer. He had all the bells and whistles. And among the old-time fiddlers, he was like, someone once said he was 50 years ahead of his time. To this date, very few people can master too much of Clark Kessinger's recordings.
Yes. I suppose you could call it misbehaving young cattle. If you...
Misbehaving young cattle. That would be okay,
yeah, okay.
too. Beam me up, Scotty. Let's see if this will fly. Thank you very much.